in over 500 separate homes. They've also continued to sample air out on the streets and throughout the community. So far, they've had no detection of contaminants, either outside or in the specific homes where they've been asked to monitor. Volatile organic compounds, or VOCs, are generally present in things we come in contact with every day: paint, flooring, carpet, furniture, cigarette smoke. Although the testing in approximately 75 homes did show elevated levels of VOCs, further testing in those 75 homes found that contaminants of concern from the derailment were not present in those homes. So nothing from the train derailment was found in the homes. Nothing was found out on the street. The monitoring will continue, however. Today, more than 24 additional homes are scheduled for air testing. The teams are still taking appointments for those people in East Palestine who want to schedule a screening of their home. That number is 330-849-3919. In summary, in the 500 homes where the air has been tested, no contamination of concern caused by the rail derailment was present in any of these homes. There are in the community 20 monitors strategically located throughout the community to continue to monitor outdoor air. I think we have a map somewhere, I hope. There's a map there. This is a map from the U.S. EPA that shows all the places where they've taken outdoor air samples over the past 2 weeks. Again, the experts tell me that these monitors are coming back clean. Clean for contaminants of concern associated with the train derailment. So this monitoring started very early on. This monitoring will continue. We will continue to do this. So we have 20 monitors. These monitors are moved around, and they will continue to be moved around the community. Let me now talk about water, residential well sampling. As we talked about earlier this week, the testing results from East Palestine's municipal water source have come back, and the results are that drinking water, testing those 5 wells that go into the community system, those 5 wells have all come back clean. The water is safe to drink. We never thought that the municipal water was contaminated, but out of an abundance of caution, our Ohio EPA took samples which were analyzed, and they in fact came back and were shown to be safe. You do not need to drink bottled water if you are on municipal water. If you get your water from a private well, you are encouraged to use bottled water until your water is confirmed to be safe. That, again, is just out of abundance of caution. To date, 38 private wells have been sampled. More private wells are scheduled for testing today. These samples, unfortunately, take a while to get it back from the lab. So we don't have any results back yet, but we expect them very, very soon to start coming back. Again, to schedule testing for your private well, call 330-849-3919. Let me talk now about the Ohio River. When we met earlier this week, the Ohio EPA discussed the chemical plume in the Ohio River. I'm happy to report this morning that sampling has shown that the plume is now completely dissipated. It was never thought to be a threat, but they could get slight detections. And I want to mention that something I've learned during this is the Ohio River is monitored normally very extensively. And so they were able to pick up, before they were able to pick up where that plume was. It was never thought to be very high, never thought to be very dangerous, but they could detect it as it moved down river. Now we're told that they cannot detect it at all. To give you some idea of the numbers, the level of concern for this contaminant is 560 parts per billion. Readings yesterday, when we could still get a reading on it, were under 3 parts per billion. So again, level of concern 560. Yesterday it was at 3. Today it is at 0. The levels at which this chemical was in the Ohio River have always been very low. We are no longer getting readings at all. I'm told that some water systems along the Ohio River will close their water intake lines for the time being out of abundance of caution. We understand that. That's perfectly fine, but we do believe that there's no reason to be concerned about water now from the Ohio River, and there's never really been a reason to concern, and we no longer can get any reading at all of this contaminant. Let me go to the local creeks. I know that there's been some video played on TV of circulating a visible physical contamination in one of the local waterways. A section of Sulphur Run that is very near the crash site remains severely contaminated. We knew this. We know this. It's going to take a while to remediate this. It will be remediated, but it's certainly a place to be avoided at this point. Very soon after the crash, Sulphur Run was dammed, so the contamination in that part of the creek does not contaminate any of the other water. It was kept in there and on hold. In fact, teams are pumping clean water from the point of the eastern dam, funneling it away from the contaminated section of the creek and releasing it back into Sulphur Run at the western dam, so diverting it around where the contamination is. This occurred early on after the crash. This allows clean water to bypass the area of the derailment and prevents clean water from picking up contaminants and carrying them into other waterways. The remediation of the water in the direct area of the spill is going to take some time, just as it is taking some time to deal with the dirt. This is not a simple process. We're encouraging people to continue to avoid that area. Now, I know there's been a lot of questions about FEMA and calling in FEMA for aid. At this point, based on what FEMA has told us and continues to tell us, my Chief of Staff talked to them again this morning, we do not qualify for assistance. Although FEMA is synonymous with disaster support, they're most typically involved with disasters where there's tremendous home or property damage, tornadoes, flooding, hurricanes. That's why we do not expect that FEMA will come to East Palestine. However, to make sure that if in the future FEMA is ever needed, we want to preserve our rights to be able to ask them for help. So, to make sure that if FEMA is ever needed in the future to help residents in regard to this crash, we're going to preemptively file a document with FEMA to preserve our rights in case we need their assistance in the future. We believe that the railroad should continue to pay, and we're going to insist that they pay. Whatever damages have been caused, the railroad is responsible for those damages. We're filing this paper with FEMA just in case in the future we need that. Let's say, for example, the railroad stops paying for whatever reason. We're still going to go after the railroad, but we want to make sure that there will be support for people if that support does, in fact, stop from the railroad. Let me move now to HHS. We know that the science indicates that this water is safe, the air is safe. But we also know very understandably, the residents of East Palestine are concerned. They ask themselves, you know, they might have a headache. They might ask themselves, is this a headache, or is this headache that is in fact caused by the train derailment, or other medical symptoms they may be experiencing caused by the train derailment. These are very legitimate questions. Residents deserve an answer. They have suffered a great deal. This has been a traumatic time for them. This has been a horrific train derailment, and we understand, you know, have some understanding of what they've gone through. We've asked for medical experts from the United States Department of Health and Human Services to come to East Palestine. This request has now been granted by HHS. We are now going to establish in the next several days a clinic in East Palestine. This is a clinic that will be established by the Ohio Department of Health. We will get assistance and help from HHS. We want them to be able to engage with the residents of East Palestine. We want them to be able to answer the residents' questions, evaluate symptoms, provide their medical expertise. The people who will come in, and we expect them in early next week, will also have access to the best experts in the world in regard to chemical exposures. Again, we are doing this because we know the concern that has been expressed by so many of the residents. Dr. Vanderhoff spent a few days there. He talked to a number of residents. Other members of our team have talked to residents. We know the concern that they have. And they're very, very understandable, and they deserve answers. Working with the Ohio Department of Health and the U.S. and Ohio EPA, they plan to begin seeing patients early next week. Information on the location of the clinic and the hours that will be available, as soon as we have them, and it will be on the website at ema.ohio.gov/East Palestine. Again, that is ema.ohio.gov/East Palestine. So we expect them to come to town probably on Monday, and we will be in the process of putting that clinic together. Again, we know that there are some people who do not have insurance. We also know that we have people who may not even have a primary doctor. We want to make sure they have a place to go, a central place where they can go to get help. Again, this is not based on anything that we're seeing in the sampling of the air. It's not based on anything we're seeing in the sampling of the water. Water is good to drink if it's coming from the municipal water system. The air, we will continue to monitor the air, but so far we've seen nothing in regard to the air out of the ordinary. But we'll continue to do that. We know that this whole last several weeks has taken a tremendous toll on residents in East Palestine. We know that this has been a traumatic experience for all of them. Working with the county Alcohol, Drug, and Mental Health Board, we are supporting a number of local mental health resources. Information will be available on our website later today, again at ema.ohio.gov/East Palestine. Again, that's ema.ohio.gov/East Palestine. In addition to these local resources, The Ohio Care Line is open 24 hours a day and staffed with trained mental health professionals who are there to listen and to help. All calls are free and confidential. They can also connect you with local resources if follow-up care is in fact needed. And I'll ask in a moment Director Laura Chris to talk about this. Now I've asked Dr. Vanderhoff, the Director of the Ohio Department of Health, to join us, and asked Dr. Vanderhoff now to talk a little bit about what is coming up in the future, and may also reflect on what he has seen when he has been in East Palestine. Doctor?
Well, thank you very much, Governor. Well, thankfully, as the Governor has described very well, extensive testing of the air in East Palestine, as well as testing of municipal water sources, has been very reassuring, and further testing of the private water sources is ongoing. Thus far, as the Governor outlined very thoroughly, we have simply not found elevations of these volatile organic compounds that would lead us to suspect any significant risk related to the tested air and water. Nevertheless, I and my colleagues have been on site and in the community talking with so many members of the community. And as a result of that, we know, as the Governor described, that some people continue to have concerns, perhaps even after seeing their doctor, and we know there are other members of the community who really do not have a regular doctor. We also know that many medical providers who are in that area would really value support from medical experts who are deeply knowledgeable about how to address questions people have related to their concerns about a potential exposure. So with all of these concerns in mind, we have worked very closely with the local community, of course our state agencies, and our national partners to bring enhanced clinical support along the lines of what the Governor described in very good detail to that greater East Palestine community. Now, in partnership with local providers who include the Columbiana County Health Department, as well as a community health center, we, as he noted, are planning to open a medical assessment clinic for those who may have these lingering concerns, particularly those who may find themselves in the situation of really not having a primary care home. As he noted, our plans are in active development. We are committed to bringing this online next week, and we will be making further announcements. We are also working with the national experts, again under the rubric of the support from HHS, and that the acronym for that, we've mentioned it before, ATSDR. These are the nation's leading experts in addressing health concerns related to potential chemical exposures. And as the Governor noted, they are coming into the community. We are going to be bringing them in, working alongside of them to further evaluate the community's concerns and the community's needs. We're also going to be working with these experts from ATSDR to provide medical providers in that region with direct access to the best medical authorities so that they can work with them closely to understand how best to address some of the specific concerns they may be seeing expressed by their patients. And the epidemiologists from the Ohio Department of Health will continue to work very actively with these same national experts to monitor the health of the community, both now and into the future. And in answering very important questions along that line, including, for example, well, how long should we monitor the air? Or when should we consider retesting a given water source? All of these efforts really are a reflection of our continued commitment to working with and being with the community, the people of East Palestine. My team and I and representatives from many agencies have been with the community right from the beginning. And we are going to continue to listen to the community and support them and work with them to ensure their best health.
Doctor, thank you very much. Director Chris.
Thank you. So I think we all know this, but it's really worth saying out loud that traumatic events like this cause stress and anxiety and worry, most significantly for the people closest to the traumatic event. And everyone reacts to stress differently, and so it's important for the families affected by this disaster in East Palestine and for all of us to really pay attention to how you and your families are reacting and feeling right now, and to reach out for help if it's needed. Common signs of emotional distress include feelings of disbelief or numbness, also change in energy levels or difficulty concentrating, disruptions in appetite or sleep, and also feeling really fearful or angry. We also know that stress can cause increased use of alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs. These feelings will gradually decrease over time for most people, but in the early days of a traumatic experience like this, they will be intense for many or most, and that will be true maybe for weeks. We know that we can make those kind of stressful feelings, and the stress experience can make it really difficult to manage daily life. I'm really grateful for Marcy Patton and the team at the Mental Health and Recovery Services Board of Columbiana County, for the community counseling service providers right there in Columbiana County as well. They've all been engaged in this disaster and the response to it since day one. I talked to Marcy on the night of the derailment, and our teams have been in regular contact, making sure that the community has the services and supports that are needed. And I'm grateful and proud to say that the behavioral health providers in Columbiana County are present, and they are there for the local community members. These services are always available in Lisbon, Salem, Calcutta, East Liverpool, and East Palestine. These providers are known in the local communities. The Counseling Center, Family Recovery Center, Community Action Agency, On-Demand Counseling, and Insight Clinical Counseling and Wellness. These are all organizations that have been in the community and will remain in the community. Most of these organizations are offering services and supports for stress, both in person and through telehealth. And that means that anyone can call them from the comfort of wherever they are, rather than having to go to any specific location for services and supports. For the local community members, you can call 211, and that is operated by the team at the Help Network of Northeast Ohio. And they can help you connect to whichever of these counseling organizations, these service organizations that you feel most comfortable seeking help from if you need it. You can also call, as the governor mentioned, the Ohio Care Line. This is an opportunity to talk to a person who's trained in helping with stress management, and the calls are open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They're confidential and they're free, and it's for just emotional support. The number for that is 1-800-720-9616. That's 1-800-720-9616 for free, confidential conversation for someone who can help with stress. The important thing is to know that you're not alone, and help is available within your local community in a way that feels comfortable and convenient to you. And it can help really manage hard situations, and we're in this with you for the long haul. Thank you.
Director, thank you very much. We're happy to take any questions.
So starting with Dr. Mike. Resources, Channel 10. When you say you're going to hold Norfolk Southern accountable, can you detail exactly what that means?
Well, we've talked to the Attorney General, and, Attorney General, is looking at this situation, but, he'll have further information, I think, next week. But look, thus far, when we've asked them to pay, they have paid. They are responsible for this crash. They are responsible for any damage that has been done. And so, I reached out again to the CEO the other day and asked him, I said, look, people are worried you're going to leave town. He said, no, we're not going to leave town. We're going to make sure we have everything cleaned up. But it's just a general statement. We're going to make sure that they fulfill their duty. They caused this problem. And let me just also say that I think, East Palestine was visited yesterday by our 2 United States senators, members of Congress, others. As I've expressed to them, I think it's time now for the U.S. Congress to take a look at rail safety in this country. Look at the question of what products are being carried on the rails, what the responsibility is of the railroad, what the responsibility is of the railroad to notify a state when that product is coming through. In this particular case, there was no notification, and apparently there was no legal requirement for a notification. Now, you look at the product that was on these trains and on these cars, and so many of these different cars, you see what's happened after the train wreck, and you think, what? The law doesn't require them to notify the state of Ohio or anybody that this is coming through our state from one end of the state to the other? This is crazy. The law has to be changed in this area. We have to be given notification. Something's very, very wrong here. We've also seen other train derailments in the state of Ohio. We've seen them across the country. When it's a train derailment and it's just an empty boxcar, I guess that's one thing. But many of these trains are carrying some very, very dangerous products. So, again, I think Congress needs to look at that whole issue as well. The federal government historically, over a number of years, has preempted the states from really controlling this, and the states from being able to control what comes into Ohio, what goes out of Ohio, what goes through Ohio. The responsibility is with the federal government to make those changes, because they preempted our ability, really, to act in this particular area.
Thank you. Haley Nelson with ABC 6 in Columbus. Are you considering a declaration of disaster, and is that not needed for FEMA?
Yeah, look, we will, if at any point we get any indication that we can activate FEMA, we certainly can, do that notification of disaster. Look, this is a disaster. It's a disaster by any definition, but there's a legal definition. So whether we file it and say there's a disaster or don't, and I'll leave that up to our lawyers, this certainly has been a disaster. The declaration of disaster does trigger the ability then to get FEMA to do something. FEMA has told us as late as this morning that we do not qualify. We don't qualify yet. We just, for all the reasons that I outlined before. So, we'll do whatever we need to do if in the future FEMA aid is needed. But, we started this with aid from the U.S. EPA. They've been on the scene all the way through this. We got the U.S. military involved when our Ohio National Guard was modeling this. We have reached out to again, the federal government, HHS, in regard to getting help to come in here. That help will be coming in the form of doctors and other medical personnel next week. So we will continue to work very, very closely with them. Our contact with FEMA has been on a daily basis for a number of days.
Hi, good morning, Governor. Morgan Travis, 5 Cleveland. Can you please tell us about the route that the train took and if it went through any major cities like Cleveland or if it went through any other areas?
Yeah, I do not have the exact route, but it was in Ohio for a considerable period of time. And again, it goes back to what I said. This is exposing Ohioans all the way through. We all have seen or at least heard about the video when it went through Salem, also in Columbiana County, but in a different part of the county, where there were indications clearly that there was something going on and something was wrong. So I think it goes back to wherever it went specifically, and the railroad can supply that information. The reality is it was in Ohio in a significant period of time, and it was subject to a problem at any point. So you had a lot of Ohio citizens who certainly could have been traumatized by this rail accident.
And even if it had not gone through these different areas, or even if it had gone through other ones instead, if you knew that it had toxic material on it, would that have changed anything with the train?
Yeah, look, that's a good question. I mean, we cannot, because of federal preemption, we cannot prohibit them from coming into the state of Ohio. But what we can do is to know that, and to notify our fire departments or EMS people all the way along the route that, hey, this is what it's carrying. These are the chemicals it has. It's coming through at such and such a time, and if there's any problem, you'll know that is what it is carrying. So, notification, no, it doesn't solve the problem. The problem is they derailed. There's a defect somewhere. There was a mistake somewhere. There's a problem with the car. There's a problem with the rail, something. But that doesn't solve that problem, but it does at least give people some notice and give the people who are going to have to respond at least some notice before the train comes through. Hey, if anything happens, this is what's in that train. Who else?
Governor Natalie Fogg, NBC4. How long and how often will you continue to test the air and the water in the area?
Yeah, we're going to continue to test the air and the water as long as it's necessary. So we're in here for the long run. We're not leaving East Palestine. We're going to rely on what the experts tell us, but we still are seeing, we're still in a process where cleanup is occurring with the dirt, and remediation cleanup is occurring with the water that's in the creek. So that work is going to continue. So certainly not anywhere in the near future are we planning on leaving. We're going to stay there until we're not needed.
Hi, Governor. Joe Ingalls, Ohio Public Radio. My question is, a lot of people online are saying they simply don't believe you. They don't believe the state leaders on this. They think you're downplaying this. And they're afraid that someday in the future it might be like 9/11, where, 5, 10, 15 years out, something's discovered that's horrible that happened like it did with the 9/11 responders. Can you address that concern?
Yeah, I mean, in this particular case, from early on, we've had people on the scene who have been testing. We are doing this testing. We didn't wait. We were in there early. We know where the contamination is. We know what the situation is with the air. The air that people are breathing is in fact fine. We're now bringing in medical people to talk to anybody who has a particular problem. So we're doing absolutely everything that we can to assure residents about what the situation is. We're going to continue. We're going to continue to do that. Look, I understand people have been traumatized, and I understand skepticism, and sometimes skepticism is warranted. Nothing wrong with healthy skepticism. But all I can do as governor of the state of Ohio is tell you we have the best experts that we can get, and we have the best equipment that there is available to do the testing. We believe the testing is accurate. It is not just one test and we go away. We continue to test. We continue to monitor. And these are not just people from the governor's office. This is the Ohio EPA. It's the U.S. EPA. And we're now bringing in other experts as well. So that, we got a lot of people in here who have absolutely no reason to be lying, no reason to be minimizing this. And candidly, I have no reason to minimize this particular problem. What we need to do is, my obligation is to tell people what we know, when we know it, do it in real time. That's why we've held a number of press conferences. That's why we do a release every day of what evidence that we have uncovered and what the testing is, and we're going to continue to do that.
With the Ohio Bureau. Can you clarify what exactly you filed with FEMA today? And then as a follow-up to that, do you anticipate requesting any other federal assistance aside from the HHS aid that's coming in?
Look, we're going to request any kind of assistance that we think.
Governor Mike DeWine there continuing to give updates on the very latest there with the train derailment in East Palestine, Ohio. We have been covering this for you since the very beginning, and we will continue to listen to updates coming up here. But we want to now take you out to the ground there in East Palestine, Ohio. Take you right now to Fox's Lucas Tomlinson that is there right now covering this and talking to people that are on the ground and in those communities. Lucas.
Well, Mike, we just heard from Ohio Governor Mike DeWine. He continues to insist that the water in this town is safe to drink. He said the tests have come back negative. He said anybody getting their water from their local wells should have those wells individually tested before drinking them. It sounds a lot like what we just heard from the President Biden's EPA administrator, who says the water's safe to drink and that the air is clean as well. You might just have heard that train horn. We've got a freight train coming through here exactly 2 weeks from the day when 32 North, that Norfolk Southern train derailed here in East Palestine. We have been talking to some locals. Can I just bring in right now, this is Darren Gamble from East Palestine. Sir, thank you for joining us. We just heard from Ohio's governor who says that drinking water is safe. Do you believe him?
I don't know what to believe right now, but I would say no. I mean, it's so early. I mean, just because it doesn't show up now doesn't mean that it's not going to be in there. I just... we're not getting any answers. Nobody knows, but I would say no. I'm drinking bottled water. I lived here for 60 years, my whole life. I've always drank the city water. In fact, I thought it was some of the best city water ever. But now, it's too many unknowns.
What about children being back in school? The local high school, middle school, the children are back in school starting Monday. Although last night I heard that a women's basketball team canceled their playoff game against East Palestine. Who's right there?
Unfortunately, the Bristol, the team that did cancel, asked the Ohio High School Athletic Association to move the game somewhere else, and they refused. So Bristol canceled. It's hard to blame them, consider what's going on here. But, they sent us home, and, 2 days, 3 days later, we finally got the manifest of what other chemicals were on the train. It's the whole thing's absurd.
How's the cleanup going in the town?
It's terrible. I mean, the first day they're hauling a contaminated soil from the wreck, and all the trucks had mud all over their tires, and the streets they was hauling, it was just nothing but mud. So to fix that, they brought in street sweepers, and the mud dried, and it turned into dust and right back in the air. I mean,
where's this dust and dirt going in some of the water they're taking?
Well, it's obviously going right back into where we are. Who knows? And I don't know. It's just the whole thing's a mess.
Are you feeling assured from President Biden, from his top aides, from Ohio's governor, from perhaps Senator J.D. Vance, who came to the town yesterday, said Norfolk Southern needs to pay, not the American taxpayer?
Well, I understand that, but, we're still in a state of emergency here, in my opinion, and the only people that are helping us are the local nonprofits. You know, our tax dollars, believe it or not, we pay here too. We might be in Appalachia, but we deserve the same accommodations that a more affluent community would get. And I don't think that we're getting it.
Does Norfolk Southern need to do more?
Norfolk Southern needs to do a lot more, and start being transparent. I mean, the other day, I'm sure you know that anybody in our zip code was allotted a $1,000 deal. This is 10 days after it happened. I'm sure they're not just giving that away because they feel sorry for us. I mean, I think there's going to be a lot more of this yet to come that nobody knows.
Now, when Ohio's governor says that FEMA can't come in here yet because this was not a natural disaster, it's not a tornado, a hurricane, damage to property, I'm paraphrasing, what is your response to that?
Well, it's still damaging the people. I mean, isn't that, you know, we're supposed to be the greatest country in the earth. What's the deal? Why aren't we getting any more assistance than we're getting?
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Gamble. So, Mike, as you heard, many residents feeling exactly the same way that Mr. Gamble is thinking. He wants to see more help, more assistance from not just Norfolk Southern, but also the federal government.
Yeah, that is definitely a hot topic there and a concerning topic for so many there that live in that community. Fox's Lucas Tomlinson, thanks so much for the chat and the live interview right here on Live Now from Fox. We appreciate it.
You bet, Mike. Thanks for having us.